In this video, we'll talk about how we can implement the put and the delete request for our Spring Boot REST API application. And we'll see how we create the controller and also the service for this. And we'll run it on Postman and see what the output is. So just to give you a brief recap of what we have done in the previous videos. So we are making a to-do list REST API Spring Boot application where we have a to-do list API which we are going to create, which is going to have things like creating a task, updating a task, and deleting a task. So the CRUD operations that can be performed in a simple REST API, but using Spring Boot. So in the initial videos, we made our to-do entity where we had a simple to-do class and we had the attributes or the variables for the class, which is ID, name, summary, description. We had generated the getters and setters and also the parameterized and non-parameterized constructors. After that, we talked about how we can do a dependency injection into our Spring Boot application in the controller, where the to-do service is a singleton and how it works behind the scenes and all of that. And then we implemented a few requests. So we implemented 3 API endpoints, which is /todos, which is get all to-dos. And the other one is getting a single particular to-do based on the unique ID. And the last one is create to-do. And we also talked about how we just have an in-memory data right now. So we don't have a database yet, but the video after this will be starting our database journey. So we'll actually connect a database to our REST APIs, and then we'll be actually dealing with that. So in the upcoming videos, we'll also talk about how we can actually deploy our application on the cloud so that everyone and anyone can access it and use the API. So that is for later videos. But for this video, let's start implementing our put and our delete requests. So let's start with put first. So let's make our simple endpoint controller for this. So we just have a request mapping, and the method is going to be equal to request method dot put. So pretty straightforward, nothing different here. And the value is going to be equal to /todos/id. So only when we have the particular ID of our task, only then we can change it. So that is it. Next, what we have to do is make the method or code up the method. So we'll be having update to do, and now this will be having a path variable. So let's write that. Nothing extra here, just simple stuff which we have already done before. The path variable is going to be the ID, so the integer ID. Oh, sorry, my bad. And we'll also be having a request body where we have the updated things which you want to update inside our to-do, right? So request body, and that's going to be a to-do object called as to-do. Great, awesome. So now we have our method ready, and all you have to do is just like post, we just have a to-do call to the to-do service dot update to do and pass in our object. Now obviously this hasn't been made yet. The function update to do hasn't been made yet, so we'll have to code that up. But this is how the controller looks like. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward, nothing complicated here. Exactly like post, but we have an ID and we have a request body. So let's implement update to do now. So create method, and this is our auto-generated stub to fill in. So let's fill this up now. So how do we actually update our task, update our to-do object here in this array list, right? So what we can do is, instead of doing a filter and lambda functions, all of that, we'll just do a simple for loop where we loop through each and every to-do list object, and then we check if we have the one by ID. So we check by ID. So if the to-do.id is equal to the ID inside the list, then we update, or then we set the object at that place, or we replace it. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. If you know Java, that should be more than enough. But let's actually implement it now. So for int I equal to 0, I less than to-dos dot size I plus plus, and now we are looping inside. Let's get the to do. To do's dot get I, the index, and now let's check whether the ID matches. So if t dot get ID dot equals to do dot get ID. So if the ID matches, then we have to update our function. So let's see how that works now. So yeah, so I completely forgot about this integer ID, and I think the integer comes before to do. So let me just change that. Let me just fix this. Great. So let me see the to do controller. So the controller has two, right? My bad, sorry. So we have the ID comma to do. Great. So now instead of doing a to do dot get ID, we just do an ID. So I know it's much easier to work with. Yeah, now let's replace our existing to do, let's say 2, with the new object which we have. So all you have to do is do a to do's dot set. The index is I and the element is to do. And now that we're done, we return once that happens. So we're not handling a lot of exceptions and issues here for any of the REST APIs. We'll be doing that in the subsequent videos where we actually handle the cases where we are not able to find a to do, so we throw a status 404 and also give a user-friendly message. So we'll be doing all of that in the upcoming videos, but in the initial videos, let's talk about the basics that we need to understand about how MVP architecture in Spring works, and also how simple API endpoints can be made without dwelling much into it. So this is how the update works. So update to do, loop through all of them, get each object, compare the ID, and then replace it with the new updated to do object if you find a match, and then return. And that's it for update. And now let's start implementing a delete. So delete is pretty straightforward, pretty simple, so we don't have to worry much about it. We'll just do it very quickly in like a few minutes, and then we can run the application and see our final a very simple hello world of CRUD right now. So again, let me just copy paste a lot of it here now. We don't have to write so much again. So we copy this again, and we just need to make a few changes. So this is going to be delete. Yep, and we don't need a request body because we just get the ID and we delete it automatically. And this has to be deleted. Yep, that's it. Let me just check. We request mapping, delete, and get it by ID, and then we just remove the ID. Great. So let's create the method in service now, and we got the stub. So again, the delete logic is pretty simple and straightforward, just like the update and the rest of them. We just have to loop through every single one again, and then delete the one which we get a match by the ID. So now that we have already done a for loop, let's do a lambda function again, because it's much more intuitive to do it with a lambda function here, and you'll see why. So all you have to do is return. So okay, we don't have to return also, we have a void. So we do a to do's dot remove if, and we have a lambda function now. So for every to do object, remove it if t dot get ID dot equals the ID, and that's it. So since ID is unique, it will remove the ones which have the same ID. So again, if there's only one ID of 1, then 1 is removed. So that's it. That's pretty much it. We just remove it if the ID is equal. So as I said, we are not doing a lot of we are handling a lot of issues and exceptions here, because this is a very basic implementation, and we'll talk about or worry about them in a later video. So just to see what's happening here, we are assuming that the to-do ID is unique, so we have to add that unique constraint here and the annotations, but we'll do that later. But the to-do ID is later, then we remove it if there is a match, and that's pretty much it and how delete works. So let's run the application now and see if our implementation is right. So let me just run it before we actually use Postman. So run as Java application. And should happen about now. Yep, our laptop is really slow. I need to update it, but yeah, let's see what we can do about that. Great, so I think it is started on port 8080. So we have so let's get it first. So let me increase the size of this. Yeah, so let's get all the to-dos first. So we have 1, 2, and 3, task 1, task 2, task 3, and now let's do a put on 1. So let's do it on 1 now. We'll do a put body is going to be for 4. Okay, so we already have 4 here, so I'll just be lazy and do it for 4. So summary 4 updated and description also updated. The header is going to be application content type JSON, nothing different there, and we need an ID. So the ID is 4. So we're updating 4, and we just update the summary and description. And now let's press send. So we don't get anything here, but if you do a get on everything now, as you can see that, oh sorry, we didn't even have 4. Oh my bad. Yep, that was bad. Let's do a put again, and let's do it for 3 this time. I completely forgot that we do not have 4. Wow. 3 and yep, 3. Great, so we're not missing anything now. Let's do a send and get all of them, send, and as you can see we have updated the third one. And now while we're at it, let's delete 3 because 3 did not help us in any way anyway. Yeah, so we have delete and to do /3, press send. Again, we don't get a body back, but when you do a get again, you should see that 3 has been deleted. So yeah, as you can see, we just have 1 and 2. So this is how you actually implement a simple hello world CRUD application using Spring Boot. And now in the upcoming videos, we'll be doing a bunch of interesting stuff which is going to be added to our app. The next thing is going to be connecting our application with a database, and after that we'll be adding a few constraints out of that using annotations in our application, and at the end we'll be deploying our application on the cloud. Let's see how we do that in the later video as well. So that was it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.